I don't remember a time when I was ever truly seen. Not in my own home. Not by the people who were supposed to notice me first. In my family, being a girl meant being background noise. Something present but not important. Something useful but not worth investing in. My name is Victoria. And growing up, I learned very early that my worth depended on one thing I could never change. I wasn't a boy. My brother Daniel was. And that alone made him everything. He was the pride of the family, the future, the investment. The reason my parents woke up early, worked late, and sacrificed everything. I was just there. Let your brother use it, my mother would say whenever I picked up something new. Don't disturb him, he's studying, my father would add. Even when Daniel was doing nothing but scrolling through his phone, I learned to shrink myself, to speak less, to need less, to expect nothing, because expecting something only led to disappointment. I was 9 when I first realized how deep the difference ran. I had come first in my class. Not just first, I had the highest score in the entire grade. My teacher held my hand and said, "Victoria, you're special. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." I believed her. I ran home that day, holding my report card like it was the most important thing in the world. I thought maybe this time they would see me. But when I walked into the house, no one even looked in my direction. Daniel had just been accepted into a private school. A very expensive one. My parents were celebrating like they had just won the lottery. "My son," my father kept saying, smiling like I had never seen before. "My boy will go far," my mother added, her voice full of pride. I stood there quietly waiting. Just waiting. But no one asked about my day. No one noticed the paper in my hand. That night, I left my report card on the dining table. My father saw it. He glanced at it for a second. "Good," he said casually. "Keep it up." That was it. That was the moment something inside me shifted, because I realized something painful. In my family, being excellent as a girl was expected. But being average as a boy was celebrated. As we grew older, the gap between us only widened. Daniel went to the best schools. He had private tutors, extra classes, new books, a laptop, everything he needed to succeed handed to him. Me? I went to the local public school. Overcrowded classrooms, old textbooks. Sometimes I didn't even have the full set of required materials. When I asked for help, I was told, "You're already doing well." When I asked for more, I was told, "Don't be greedy." When I compared, I was told, "Your brother is different." Different. That word became a wall I could never climb. But I didn't stop trying. I couldn't. Because deep down, I wanted them to look at me the way they looked at him. Just once. Just once I wanted to hear, "We are proud of you." So I worked harder. I studied longer. I pushed myself beyond what anyone expected. And when no one was watching, I celebrated myself. Quietly. In mirrors. In whispers. In the silence of my room. I kept every certificate in a small box under my bed. Because there was no wall in my house meant for my achievements. Daniel didn't have to fight. So he never learned how to. He skipped classes. Ignored assignments. Failed tests. But somehow it was never his fault. He's under pressure. The system is hard. He just needs more support. More support. That was always the answer for him. But when it came to me, I was too emotional. Too ambitious. Too much. By my final year in secondary school, I had stopped asking for approval. But I hadn't stopped dreaming. One afternoon, my teacher called me aside. "Victoria," she said, "you should apply for the National Scholarship Program." My heart skipped. "A full scholarship?" I asked. She nodded. "You deserve it." That word stayed with me. Deserve. I went home that day with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "Dad," I said that evening, standing carefully in front of him, "my teacher said I should apply for a scholarship." He didn't look up. "How much?" "Just the application and transport," I said quickly. "If I pass, everything else is covered." My mother walked in and overheard. "Scholarship," she repeated. "Victoria, be realistic." "I can do it," I said. My father sighed. "Your brother has exams. We can't start dividing attention now." Dividing attention. As if I had ever had any. "It's not even much money," I said softly. My mother shook her head. This is not the time. That night I didn't cry. I sat on my bed, opened my box of certificates and looked at every single one. Proof that I wasn't invisible. Proof that I wasn't less. Proof that I was capable. And in that moment I made a decision. I would stop asking them to believe in me. I would believe in myself. The next morning I went to school early and found my teacher. I want to write the exam, I said. But I can't afford it. She didn't hesitate. She opened her drawer, took out money, and placed it in my hand. Then we'll make a way, she said. My voice shook. How do I repay you? She smiled. By becoming the one they can't ignore. That became my mission. I studied like my life depended on it. Because in a way it did. While Daniel complained about his expensive lessons, I borrowed books. While he slept, I stayed up. When the power went out, I used streetlights. When I was tired, I reminded myself, no one is coming to save you. The day of the exam arrived. I wore my old uniform, polished my worn-out shoes, and walked into that hall with something stronger than fear. Purpose. My family didn't know where I was. But I knew. This was my moment. Weeks passed. Then more weeks. Nothing came. I started to wonder if maybe I hadn't made it. I didn't tell anyone at home, so I carried the doubt alone. One afternoon after school, I stopped by the administrative office. Victoria Hayes? The secretary asked. Yes. She handed me a brown envelope. There's something here for you. My name was typed neatly on it. My hands felt heavy all of a sudden. I thanked her and walked out quietly. I didn't open it immediately. I walked past the noise, past the students, until I found a quiet spot behind a classroom. I sat down. For a moment, I just stared at the envelope. Then slowly, I opened it. The paper inside was crisp, formal. I read the first line. Then again. Then more carefully. We are pleased to inform you. My heart started to beat faster. I continued. You have been awarded a full academic scholarship. I stopped. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just sat there, reading the same line over and over again, making sure it didn't change, making sure it was real. I had done it. Without their help. Without their belief. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back into the envelope. Then I sat there for a few more seconds, letting it settle. Not excitement. Not yet. Something deeper. Something steady. Like I had just stepped into a different life. When I got home that evening, everything was normal. My mother was in the kitchen. My father was watching TV. Daniel was in his room. No one knew anything had changed. I stood there with the envelope in my hand. Then I walked in. Dad, I said. He looked up briefly. What is it? I got a scholarship. He frowned slightly. What kind? I handed him the letter. He read it silently. My mother came closer. After a few seconds he looked up. They will cover everything, he asked. Yes. There was a pause. My mother nodded. Well, that's good, she said. At least that reduces the burden. Burden. The word didn't hurt anymore. Just confirmed everything. My father handed the letter back. Focus on it, he said. Don't waste the opportunity. Daniel glanced at it from a distance. Nice, he muttered before walking away. And that was it. No celebration. No pride. Just another quiet moment in a house that never learned how to see me. That night I opened my box of certificates again. But this time something felt different. For the first time it wasn't about proving anything to them. It was about me. I placed the scholarship letter inside the box. Then paused. No, it didn't belong there. Not anymore. I took it out and kept it separately. Carefully. Like something that marked a new beginning. Later that night I packed my things. Not just clothes, but everything I had carried for years. The silence. The waiting. The need to be seen. I was leaving. And this time, I wasn't hoping they would notice. As I stood by the window, looking out into the darkness, I made myself a promise. They ignored me because I was a girl. But one day, I will become the one they need. Leaving home didn't feel dramatic. There were no tears. No long hugs. No "we'll miss you." My mother reminded me to call when I arrived. My father told me to focus. Daniel didn't come out of his room. And just like that, I left. It was strange. I had imagined that moment many times. I thought I would feel something big. Relief. Freedom. Maybe even anger. But what I felt instead was quiet. Like I had finally stepped out of a place where I had been holding my breath for years. University was nothing like I expected. Not in the way movies show it. There were no instant friendships. No easy transitions. No magical turning point where everything suddenly worked out. It was hard. Really hard. The scholarship covered my tuition, accommodation, and basic materials. But everything else? I had to figure it out. Food. Transport. Personal needs. There were days I skipped meals without telling anyone. Days I stretched a single meal across 2 days. Days I walked long distances just to save a little money. And still, I didn't complain. Because I had chosen this. The first few weeks were the hardest. Everyone seemed to already belong somewhere. They had friends, connections, confidence. I had none of that. I kept to myself. Went to lectures. Sat in the front. Took notes. Left quietly. Returned to my room. Studied. Repeated. It became a routine. A lonely one. But a necessary one. Sometimes late at night I would lie in bed and think about home. Not because I missed them, but because I wondered something I couldn't answer. If I disappeared completely, would they notice? Or would it take months? That thought used to hurt. Now it just made me focus harder. Academically, I did well. Better than well. I was used to pushing myself, so the pressure didn't scare me. But university was different. Here, everyone had been the best somewhere before. So being good wasn't enough anymore. You had to stand out again. From the beginning. And I did. Quietly. Consistently. Without announcing it. One afternoon after a lecture, a professor stopped me. "Victoria." I turned slightly surprised. "Yes, sir. I've noticed your work," he said. "You're very consistent." I nodded. "Thank you." He studied me for a moment. "Do you work part-time?" I hesitated. "No, sir." "You should consider it," he said. "There's an opening in the department office. Nothing big. Just administrative work. It might help." Help. That word meant something different now. "Thank you, sir," I said. "I'll apply." That small job changed everything. It wasn't glamorous. Filing documents. Answering emails. Organizing schedules. But it gave me something I had never really had before. Stability. For the first time, I didn't have to calculate every single coin before buying food. For the first time, I could breathe a little. And more importantly, it gave me access. Working in the department meant I was around lecturers, researchers, and professionals all the time. I listened more than I spoke. Observed more than I participated. I paid attention to how they thought. How they worked. How they solved problems. I was learning things that weren't in any textbook. And slowly, something began to change. Not outside. Inside. I stopped seeing myself as the girl who had been ignored. I started seeing myself as someone who was building something. Something real. Something independent. Something that didn't require anyone's permission. Back home, things were predictable. My mother called occasionally. Mostly to check practical things. "Are you eating? Are your classes going well?" There was no depth. No curiosity. No real interest. My father rarely spoke. When he did, it was brief. "Focus on your studies. Daniel?" He called once. Just once. "University life suits you?" he asked casually. "It's fine," I said. He replied. "Things are not easy here." I didn't ask what he meant. 'Cause for once, his struggles were not my responsibility. Months passed. Then a year. I didn't go home. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't feel the need to. For the first time in my life, I was somewhere I wasn't invisible. Not fully seen yet, but not ignored either. Then came the first real shift. It started with a project. One of my lecturers announced a competitive research opportunity. Only a few students would be selected. The best. The ones who showed initiative. Most students hesitated. It sounded demanding, time-consuming, uncertain. I didn't hesitate. I applied. The selection process was intense. Interviews, assessments, presentations. I had never done anything like it before. But I prepared. The same way I always did. Quietly. Relentlessly. The day the results came out, I didn't rush to check. I waited until the crowd had cleared. Then I walked up to the notice board. Slowly. My eyes scanned the list. Name after name. Then I saw it. Victoria Hayes. Selected. This time I smiled. Not widely. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Because I understood something now. I wasn't chasing validation anymore. I was building value. That project opened doors. Real doors. Exposure. Connections. Opportunities. For the first time, people started to take notice. Lecturers remembered my name. Colleagues asked for my input. My work was no longer just good. It was respected. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I realized something important. I was no longer trying to prove my family wrong. I had outgrown that need. I was becoming something they had never imagined. Something they never invested in. Something they never saw coming. But life has a way of bringing things full circle. Because just when I had fully stepped into my own path, that's when everything started to change back home. And for the first time, they were going to need me. The first call came on a Tuesday evening. I almost didn't pick it up. I was in the department office, finishing up some work before heading back to my room. My phone vibrated quietly on the desk, and when I glanced at the screen, I saw my mother's name. For a second, I just stared at it. She didn't call often, and when she did, it was never important. I let it ring twice more before answering. Hello. Victoria, she said, her voice different. Not sharp. Not distant. Just tired. Are you busy? I paused. A little. What's wrong? There was silence on the other end. Then she sighed. It's your brother. Of course it was. Something inside me shifted, but I kept my voice steady. What happened? He's having some difficulties in school, she said carefully. We thought it was just stress, but it's more than that. I leaned back in my chair. How bad? Another pause. Then quietly, he might not graduate. I didn't react immediately. Not because I didn't understand, but because I did. Perfectly. All those years. All that investment. All that attention. And now this. I see, I said. We've tried everything, she continued quickly. Extra lessons, talking to his lecturers, even considering transferring him, but nothing is working. I said nothing. Because for the first time, I had nothing to offer. Not advice. Not comfort. Not urgency. Just silence. Victoria, she said, her tone shifting slightly. You've always been good with your studies. Always been. Not we're proud. Not we see you now. Just convenient recognition. I could almost hear the unspoken words. We need you. I closed my eyes briefly. What do you want me to do? I asked. Maybe you can talk to him, she said. Guide him. Help him focus. Guide him. Help him. The same brother who had everything I didn't. The same brother I was told not to compare myself to. The same brother whose future was different. I exhaled slowly. I'll think about it, I said. That's all we're asking, she replied quickly. When the call ended, I sat there for a long time. Not angry. Not bitter. Just aware. The shift had begun. A few days later, my father called. That alone told me things were worse than they had said. He never called. Victoria, he said. His voice firm but less certain than I remembered. Dad, how are your studies? Fine. Good. A pause. Then he cleared his throat. We're facing some challenges here. Of course you are. With Daniel, he added. I waited. He's not responding to anything, my father continued. We've spent a lot trying to fix this situation. Spent a lot. That part didn't surprise me. And, I asked, we were hoping you might come home for a few days. I almost laughed. Not out loud, but inside. Come home. After everything. Why? I asked calmly. To talk to him, he said. He might listen to you. Might listen. That was new. Daniel had never needed to listen to me before. Let me check my schedule, I said. Do that, he replied. It's important. Important. Now it was important. I didn't go immediately. Not because I couldn't, but because I needed to be sure of something. That I wasn't going back as the same girl who had left. I wasn't going back to be ignored, or dismissed, or used. If I was going back, it would be different. When I finally arrived home, everything looked the same. The house, the gate, the quiet familiarity. But something felt off. Less confident, less certain. My mother opened the door. For a brief moment, she looked at me like she didn't know what to say. Then she smiled. "You're here." "Yes." She stepped aside. "Come in." No hug, but no distance either. Just something in between. My father was in the living room. He stood up when he saw me. That alone was new. "Victoria," he said. "Dad." He nodded. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you." That word stayed with me. Daniel was in his room. The door was half open. I knocked lightly. "Come in," he muttered. I stepped inside. He looked up, and for the first time in my life I didn't see confidence. I saw uncertainty. "You came," he said. "Yes." He looked away. "They told you, right?" "Some of it." He let out a dry laugh. "I messed up." I didn't respond. Not immediately. Because I wanted to hear him say it fully. "I thought I had time," he continued. "I thought I could fix things later. But now it's too late." Too late. I walked further into the room. "You had everything," I said quietly. He flinched slightly. "I know." That was it. No excuses. No blaming the system. No blaming pressure. Just acceptance. And somehow that made it heavier. We talked for a long time. Not like siblings who grew up close, but like two people who were finally being honest. He told me about the missed classes, the failed courses, the pressure he never admitted, the expectations he couldn't meet. And for the first time I understood something I hadn't before. Being favored didn't make him stronger. It made him dependent. That night I sat in the living room with my parents. They watched me differently now. Not as background, not as an afterthought, but as someone they were waiting on. "So?" my father asked. "What do you think?" I looked at both of them. Carefully. "He needs structure," I said. "Not pressure." They listened. Really listened. "We've been giving him everything," my mother said. "That's the problem," I replied. Silence filled the room. Because deep down, they knew I was right. For the first time in my life, they needed my perspective, my judgment, my direction. And I gave it. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with control. Because I wasn't here to fight for their approval anymore. I already had something better. My own. That night, as I lay in my old room, I stared at the ceiling. Everything felt different. Not because they had changed completely, but because I had. They didn't suddenly value me. They needed me. And that changed everything. Because this time, I wasn't the girl trying to be seen. I was the one they were finally looking at. And deep down I knew something else. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. Because soon, they wouldn't just need my help. They would need everything I had become. The next morning I didn't wake up early out of habit. I woke up because I had a plan. Not the kind of plan I used to make, small, quiet survival plans. This was different. This time I wasn't trying to fit into their world. I was deciding how much of myself I was willing to give to it. I found Daniel in the dining area, staring at his phone but clearly not focused. "You're up," he said when he saw me. "Yes." He hesitated. "Are you going to help me?" There was something unfamiliar in his voice. Not arrogance. Not expectation. Uncertainty. I pulled out a chair and sat across from him. "I'll guide you," I said calmly. "But I won't carry you." He nodded quickly. "Okay." "No shortcuts," I added. "Okay." "No excuses." Another nod. And for the first time I saw it. He was ready to listen. Not because he suddenly respected me, but because he had run out of options. The next few days were structured, strict, uncomfortable. For him. I went through his coursework, his notes, his schedule, what little of it existed. We started from the basics. Time management, accountability, consistency, things he had never truly been forced to learn. First he resisted. Small things, complaints, excuses. But this time I didn't soften. "This is your responsibility," I told him once when he tried to push back. I'm helping you, not saving you. He didn't argue after that. My parents watched everything. Quietly. Carefully. They didn't interrupt. They didn't correct me. They didn't say, let him rest. Or don't push him too hard. That alone told me how much had changed. Or rather, how much had failed. One evening, after Daniel had gone to his room to study, my mother sat beside me. You've really changed, she said. I looked at her. I had to. She nodded slowly. We didn't realize. Her voice trailed off. Didn't realize what? That I was capable? That I was struggling? That I existed? I didn't ask. Because I already knew. My father joined us later. He stood there for a moment before speaking. You handled things well today, he said. It wasn't praise. But it wasn't dismissal either. It was acknowledgement. And strangely, that meant more than anything he had ever said before. Thank you, I replied. He nodded. Then added, almost reluctantly, we may have underestimated you. May have. I almost smiled. Days turned into a week. Then 2. Daniel improved. Not dramatically. Not instantly. But steadily. He started attending his classes again. Completing assignments. Asking questions. Actually trying. And I could see it. Not just in his work. But in him. He was learning something he had never learned before. How to rely on himself. One afternoon while reviewing his notes he looked up at me. Why didn't you ever say anything? He asked. About what? About all of it. I paused. Then answered honestly. Because no one was listening. He looked down. I didn't notice, he said quietly. I know. That was the truth. He didn't notice. Because he never had to. By the end of my stay, things were different. Not perfect. But different. There was less tension in the house. More awareness. More balance. And for the first time, I wasn't invisible in my own home. The night before I left, we all sat together at dinner. A simple meal. Nothing special. But it felt unfamiliar. In a quiet way. Victoria, my mother said. You should visit more often. I looked at her. Maybe, I replied. Not yes. Not no. Just maybe. After dinner, my father cleared his throat. There's something we've been discussing, he said. I waited. We think it would be good if you were more involved in family decisions. Family decisions. That phrase would have meant everything to me once. Now it meant something else. Responsibility. Influence. Position. But also, choice. I'll think about it, I said. That night I packed my bag again. The same way I had when I first left. But this time I wasn't leaving to escape. I was leaving with control. With identity. With clarity. As I stepped out of the house the next morning, my mother hugged me. Briefly. Awkwardly. But she did. My father shook my hand. Not like a child. Like an equal. Daniel stood by the door. Thank you, he said. I nodded. Keep going, I replied. As I walked away, I didn't look back immediately. Not because I was holding on. But because I wasn't. When I finally turned, the house looked the same. But I knew something had shifted inside it. Not completely. Not permanently. But enough. Enough for them to understand something they had ignored for years. They didn't just overlook me. They overlooked what I could become. Now, they were starting to see it. But this wasn't the end of my story. Because while they were just beginning to recognize my value, the world outside had already started rewarding it. And what I was building was far bigger than anything they had ever imagined. When I returned to university, everything felt sharper. Not different, just clearer. Like I could finally see my life without the noise of expectation. I wasn't running anymore. I was building. The project I had been selected for became my turning point. First it was just work. Research. Data collection. Long hours in the department. But slowly it became something more. I started contributing ideas. Not just following instructions. Suggesting improvements. Asking questions others didn't ask. And for the first time, people didn't just notice. They listened. One evening, after a long session, my supervisor called me aside. Victoria, he said. Have you ever considered applying for postgraduate opportunities abroad? I paused. Abroad. He nodded. You have the discipline for it. And the mindset. With the right support, you could go very far. Very far. Those words stayed with me long after I left his office. Because for the first time, the future didn't feel limited. It felt open. I didn't rush. I didn't announce it. I did what I always did. I prepared. Quietly. I researched programs, scholarships, requirements, deadlines. I worked harder on my grades, stronger on my applications, better on my recommendations. And months later, I submitted them. While I was building something new, back home things were shifting again. This time more visibly. My mother started calling more often. Not just to check if I was okay, but to ask questions. What are you working on now? How is your research going? Are you managing everything well? The tone had changed. Subtle, but real. My father called too. Still brief. Still controlled. But different. I spoke to someone about your field, he said once. They said it's competitive. It wasn't praise. But it wasn't dismissal either. It was interest. Daniel changed the most. He followed the structure I left him with. Slowly. Carefully. And for the first time in his life, he started earning his progress. One evening he called me. I passed my courses, he said. There was something in his voice. Not pride. Relief. That's good, I replied. There was a pause. Thank you, he added. I didn't respond immediately, because I understood what that meant. Not just for him, but for me. Then came the email. I was in the library when I saw it. Subject line. My heart didn't race. Not like before. I had learned to stay steady. I opened it. Read the first line. Then the next. Then slowly, I leaned back in my chair. Accepted. With funding. Full. This time I didn't need to read it 3 times. I understood it immediately. Not because it was easy, but because I had built myself into someone who could expect it. I didn't call home immediately. Not out of spite, but because I wanted to sit with it first. To feel it. To own it. Without interruption. When I finally told them, it was simple. I got into a program abroad, I said over the phone. There was silence. Then my mother spoke. Abroad. Yes. With funding. Yes. Another pause. Longer this time. That's very good, she said. Very good. I almost smiled. My father came on the line. Which country? I told him. How long? I answered. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something I had never heard from him before. We are proud of you. I didn't respond immediately. Not because I didn't hear him, but because part of me had waited so long for those words that I didn't know what to do with them anymore. Thank you, I said finally. Daniel called later that night. You're leaving the country, he asked. Yes. That's big. Yes. There was a pause. You've really done something, he said. I let that sit. Because it wasn't just acknowledgement. It was realization. Preparing to leave felt different this time. The first time I left home, I was escaping. Now, I was expanding. There was nothing to prove anymore. Not to them. Not to anyone. Before my departure, I went home one last time. Not because they asked, but because I chose to. The house felt smaller. Quieter. Or maybe I had just outgrown it. My mother hugged me when I arrived. Less awkward this time. More certain. My father didn't just nod. He smiled. Slightly. But it was there. That evening we sat together. Not as strangers. Not as roles. But as people trying to understand each other. We didn't see it before, my mother said quietly. I looked at her. I know. We focused on the wrong things, my father added. That was as close to an apology as I would ever get. And strangely, it was enough. Because I didn't need revenge. Not the kind I once imagined. The shouting. The proving. The making them feel what I felt. No. What I had become was enough. The real revenge was this. They had invested everything in one path. And overlooked another. Now, the path they ignored had become the one that mattered. Before I left, Daniel walked me to the gate. You know, he said. I used to think you were just naturally good at everything. I looked at him. I worked for it. He nodded. I see that now. As I stepped out, I didn't feel anger, or pain, or even victory. I felt peace, because in the end, I didn't just become someone they needed. I became someone I chose to be, and that was more powerful than anything they could have ever given me. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support means a lot and helps us bring you more powerful stories like this. Also, your comment is important. Tell us what you think. What would you have done if you were in Victoria's position? Let's talk in the comments section where you are watching from.